She's
really hit a
absolutely
stride.
nailed it now.
Character is perfect. The horsewoman thing is actually really starting to make sense now. They've been getting their own sort of momentum as her sort of attack dogs. I just think the whole thing, her whole run alongside Shayna's run, essentially, has just been brilliant and well deserved.
And this sort of closing of the show really felt like a really big moment. I was saying in the review that I recorded earlier, which you won't have seen yet because I don't actually know it's gone out, so you might have seen it. I think what's been brilliant about Ripley's appearance on NXT was I feel like she was kind of chucked into the mix just before NXT, the 1 hour show that was on WWE Network closed its doors really, and they went live on USA with a new 2 hour format, which really kind of felt like almost a soft reset of what was kind of the status quo within NXT. Ripley was kind of chucked out there as we're going to do a Shayna Baszler Rhea Ripley match. And then that sort of fell by the wayside when they went live. They did a bunch of other stuff in the women's division. And then this story started to come back around and gain momentum. And then we had War Games and Ripley's kind of refusal to lose in that match and fighting back from sort of up against it, have odds were against her, all that kind of stuff. Same with Survivor Series, being kind of crafty and winning her way through that match with Charlotte and who was the other one when she did the thing through the figure eight bridge that was I think one of my favorite finishes of WWE this year.
Yes,
I just thought that was genius.
Bailey, was it?
Might have been Bailey. It might have been Sasha, maybe. I don't know, but it was I just think that sort of. I think it was Sasha because she's the other captain, wasn't it? So it was all that sort of pacing of, her build was so carefully handled, and then you get to the point where she's the number one contender. She's having this match now, and in this match they also did a lot of work to whip the crowd into this frenzy of they were already behind Rhea, they already wanted Rhea to win. And they still pulled out every single wrestling stop that you could imagine to be she's not going to, she's not going to, she's not going to, she's not going to. Oh my God, she has! Because it was interference from Duke and Shafir. They run down and get involved in the match. Then in a break, they bump her already injured arm, which she got stomped onto the steps by Baszler. They run that into the posts, leaving her sort of a bit injured. They get ejected. There's a ref bump. Baszler cheats and gets a weapon and DDTs her onto a chair. She gets a visual, Rhea Ripley gets a visual pin while the ref's down after hitting the riptide, so she gets a long 3 count. So these are all the kind of classic, you do a couple of these a match maybe. They just did every single one you can imagine. They did the really long refusal to give up in a submission spot where she got out of it 3 or 4 times. But
also, and this is credit to the way they built it, she already showed that she might do that when she got attacked before. So this was kind of repeating that spot now, but for much longer. So not only was this match, pulling out all the stops, as you say, just within its own context, but was also referencing things that mattered and that were all about, not just mattered in just terms of the title picture, who won this, who won that, but character things that they've been building into backstage attacks and promos and everything. It's interesting. It's all kind of built around character, as much as anything. And to have her she's so intimidating looking, but still managed to play the underdog compared to Shayna, which I think is as much credit to Shayna as anything else. But she had that real underdog spirit, and it really felt like that big blowout moment when she actually won. Almost felt like when Bayley won and the crowd just exploded like that. It had that same, maybe not quite to that level, but it had a similar feel, a euphoric feel to it. It was very cool. And
I think you're completely right that they've managed to do that with somebody who previously people were chanting Rhea's going to kill you.
Yeah.
For Bayley was always the underdog. Bayley was always going to be in that position. It was always going to be a euphoric moment where Bayley overcame the odds and beat Sasha Banks. But here, they somehow managed to, in one match, flip that on its head. And I think that's kind of a really neat repackaging of the Baszler arc as well, because Baszler's been champion for so long, and she's had 2 reigns, and like they were saying at the beginning of this match that she's actually now, I think, beaten Asuka's record for like the number of days holding the NXT Women's Championship. So she's now the most dominant champion in NXT history on the women's side of things. So we've seen Baszler use every single trick in the book to retain that belt, whether that's being really good at wrestling, cheating, and anything in between that sort of spectrum. She's done it all. And here, this really did feel like Baszler emptying her entire arsenal of like tricks and like cheat codes or whatever she wanted to do to win this match. And she still didn't do it, which just made Rhea Ripley winning feel all the sweeter.
And I think those two are mirrored as well, because I feel like Shayna's character for so long was she's this vicious, aggressive killer. And over time, in this, particularly in her recent run, she's had to consistently resort to measures that she wasn't previously to maintain her position at the top. It's become sort of maniacal about maintaining her place atop the mountain. And so to see someone come about actually kind of having a similar, I don't know, there's so many sort of parallels and sort of character traits that they both had and are now playing off each other. I just think it's there's a little bit of luck and coincidence in terms of like when the people have been brought up and getting the longer show and that kind of stuff. But they've made so much of this, both in booking and through their matches and their performances as well. And they've also kept them apart for ages.
Yeah. I mean, there's my one criticism of this NXT episode is not that it wasn't good. It's that it was like, why today? You know what I mean?
I was literally about to ask you this question. I said, this is everything we're saying is great.
Yeah.
But
why today and not a takeover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame. I think it's the same for the opening match as well. I think this moment was wasted, and I think, historically, I know I said this to you before we came on air, but historically, the one thing everyone says is one of the big reasons that WCW buried itself was because they, in their pursuit of beating WWE, they kept putting pay-per-view matches on TV, and this is ultimately, it may not have been, it may have just been, hey, let's do a Christmas thing, or this is just where the feuds were at and they've just made a decision. But it's been characterized as this is their show to go up against AEW, who started making noises earlier that they were going to do this big Christmas show, essentially. And I think it was ultimately a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's one of those things because you don't necessarily know what their designs are on Shayna Baszler. I feel like the designs for Shayna Baszler are the main roster is a beckoning after her already winning the Survivor Series match, beating the other 2 champions. All the rumours flying around that she's going to be in the Rumble, that she might even be winning the Rumble to set up a match with Becky. But then obviously Stephanie McMahon confirmed that Ronda Rousey is coming back at some point. They don't know when. But if Ronda Rousey's coming back at the Rumble, you want to start hotting up that horsewomen versus horsewomen feud at some point, don't you? And so Shayna Baszler is a critical component of that. So maybe moving her on now is a good way to, one, bump the ratings, beat AEW when, like, what was it, last week? The views were the exact same. So, like, they've already narrowed the gap. And obviously last week was a bad week, I think, for both shows in general. I think they were both down slightly because there was something else on. But, like, they've kind of narrowed the gap when AEW were, like, racing ahead. So maybe now this is them thinking, we deploy a horsewoman losing the title, and we can just pull ahead in this little photo finish, can't we? We can be winning the Grand National now.
Well, I just think that NXT has, part of its success has been, it is stuck to some pretty hard and fast rules. And one of those rules is that they build to takeover, and then they have their big matches. They don't waste. They don't have, they have great matches every week. So they don't have to, they don't have to shoot the big bullet every week because they've got these other great matches that can happen. They'll back themselves on that. And because before it was on the network, which is slightly different, that was okay. It could fly under the radar in that sort of way and then build these longer term stories. I think to have as soon as their feet got quite close to the fire, they've kind of gone quite big on this two title matches in the night thing, and I kind of think it's a shame. I want to see it in a big room with loads of people, But at the same time, I think we've also slightly complained that a lot of these feuds have felt like they've been in a holding pattern
until the thing. So yeah, it's really hard to judge, and I think I think the benefit of this match is that like you could do a rematch at Takeover. The Takeover before the Rumble, like you could.
I don't see how you can. I don't see how you can. Not with that. When you get
Takeover before the Rumble, I think.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there's basically two takeovers within like 3 months of each other, 2 months of each other. But I reckon Baszler's moving on, and I reckon like the finish of the first match, the Balor Cole match, leaves that open for a rematch so easily. So like I don't think we've finished with either of these two sets of matches. Maybe we are finished with the Rhea Ripley Baszler thing. But maybe it's more of a timing thing. I think we should be finished with that as well, because you can't have the ring full of the crowd / wrestlers.
Yeah.
And make that such a big thing and design that to happen to make it feel that big and then just run it back.
Yeah.
I think once you've done it, and you have to just.
But I'm getting like
on.
I'm in the camp now that I want to see what their next program is for Rhea Ripley. Now that Baszler's out of the way, what do we do? How do we are we going to make her a dominant champion? Are we going to make her basically like a Baszler 2.0 or the, I guess, Asuka 3.0 in terms of NXT?
Yeah.
Like,
be interesting to see her go against so let's say she goes against Dakota Kai in her new guy.
Gimmick,
yeah. Will that work? Will Rhea Ripley look so? Would it end up? Would Dakota kind of looking like the underdog in that?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of stories blowing out just from War Games, so I think any one of those could, have a legitimate shot.
I think some sort of women's faction might be in the works for like going against Ripley, because I just feel like she's taken on a faction on her own already and sort of just handily defeated them. So it kind of feels like maybe some sort of joining together of the women's locker room.
Interesting, because really
way to take her down, or send in Tony Storm.
Well, that's
done it before.
Well, that's the other thing. Do they just send in someone with a big name? And I think.
Well, I think that's the one thing about NXT is they've got a bunch of people who haven't been seen on TV, who they have signed, who are just sort of waiting in the wings to come out and have a match and become a character and be involved. Like your Austin Theories, you've got Chelsea Green and Deonna Purrazzo. Like there are people lurking around NXT who could be the next big thing, who aren't being used yet. Especially Chelsea Green, I think. Right, well, let's end that there, and we'll go over the few super chats that we've had, and then we'll go back over the rest of the show. So, Siddhart Online says Shayna definitely winning the Royal Rumble.
I think so, and I actually think they'll. It feels like timeline-wise, I'll do that'll be what happens instead of Ronda. Mm-hmm. Just by the way all the timelines have sort of been spoken about before, it doesn't, to my mind, doesn't seem like the Rumble is necessarily the place. But
yeah, I think she's going to make a big impact in the Rumble.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say she's going to win it, just because I think someone bigger might be coming back.
So you think Ronda is coming back?
I think Ronda's probably coming back. Like, if you wanted my opinion of who should win the Rumble, I think Rhea Ripley should win the Rumble. But
no, I think Shayna should win the Rumble.
Rhea Ripley should win everything now.
I think Shayna should win the Rumble. I'm skeptical as whether it will be Ronda who comes, whether she comes back for the Rumble though. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to figure out what the timeline is ahead of when because she says a lot of stuff.
Yeah, she does.
So yeah.
The Line Drive says, the most brilliant spot in this match... Sorry, this is all on the subject of Rhea and Baszler, by the way. The most brilliant spot in this match was Rhea being in the clutch, as I knew she was winning, and my certainty faded with Rhea and rose when she grabbed the ref. Just a masterpiece. I thought that was really brilliantly done, because it was kind of every single submission spot rolled into one.
Yeah.
Because she powered out the first time, and then even on the injured arm, and then she sort of struggled because of the injured arm, but still managed to get quite far. She got dragged back again and again. She faded once, she came back, she faded again, and then grabbed the referee. It's like, you can't count me out of this. And I loved it. I thought it was so good.
And hey, you know what? This is why you build a finisher. You know, we've seen enough people choked out, passing out with that her just having the 3 with the hand drop, that felt like it could be a legitimate finish.
Yeah.
So, and that's not just building in the match. That's building that finisher over the course of nearly 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That is also what they've done with Baszler as much as anything.
And it's a really protected finisher I think in the sense that like if it's locked on in the center of the ring, you're out.
I thought they really made an effort to make the rhythm of this match, particularly at the start. It really felt like an MMA match. And there was a point where, and it's something I always think about whenever I see people doing chokes and stuff. And this is the first time, I'm sure other people can point out other times it's happened, but Rhea Ripley putting her chin under the arm.
Oh, the tuck of the chin was really clever.
Well, that is legitimately how you stop being choked in MMA matches all the time. That is what people try and do to give themselves some time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was just fascinating to see, like, this is the kind of the first time I've seen it really properly implemented as, like, we were supposed to, it was an intentional thing, we were supposed to see it. Yeah. I thought that was excellent. I think it's a bit of an indictment on like, I can't believe no one else has really made such a point of that yet. But I thought that was a brilliant bit of storytelling, and like you said, that whole choke spot was incredible.
The Line Drive comes back in again and says, I don't think this women's feud could make it to TakeOver after War Games. This was the natural end point now. February's too far off. I think
there's always stuff you can do. There's always stuff you can do.
There's definitely stuff they could have done. However, I am definitely not against this match happening and how good it was. And I think I think history will probably forget when it happened, why it happened on TV. You'll just go, that was an amazing moment, and that's kind of all you really need for it. Let's go through the rest of the show, which was actually, hang on, one's just come in. There's a miscellaneous one for NXT from Total Blurred, who says, love the channel, guys. 100% support AEW, but last night NXT won the night, no doubt in my mind. I haven't seen anything of AEW. I've only read like the review very briefly, but yeah, it did seem like this NXT episode won the night in the sense that it went out there to do one thing and one thing only, and that was just have really cracking wrestling. And that was, it was, the show opens with Mauro Ranallo describing it as a Christmas gift. We've got these 2 huge matches. But what he didn't say in that promo was just like, oh, by the way, there's also only matches tonight. Nothing else will happen. Just be like, there's literally, I think there was like one storyline angle, 2, like there was Dakota Kai did a promo very quickly, and that's a storyline angle, and then Johnny. And those are the only things that sort of really did too much of a story, that no one really spoke about anything. Like a couple of matches were made, but they weren't like made because people did something. They were just made in a sort of, they were announced for next week. This was just all out wrestling. And I think, like, as kind of we're winding up for Christmas, everyone's probably going to take a break. Stories are going to feel a little bit like stretched if they're sort of pre-recorded and then played out, or whatever they're doing, whatever their plans are over Christmas. This just felt like a sort of a really nice way to go, like, oh yeah, NXT is also just the wrestling show. Yeah. So the show opens actually with Finn Balor versus Adam Cole. The whole kind of story of this match was quite early on. Adam Cole catches Balor in the knee with a super kick on the apron. And then from that point, every time Balor tries to get kind of going on his offense, his knee gives out, or Cole goes back to the well of like hitting it with a sort of drop kick or anything like that. I liked that because it managed to make, weirdly, I think that this was kind of an NXT that had a lot of injury angles in its matches, because there was Rhea's injured arm in her match, and Punishment Martinez comes out with taped up ribs as well. But here, this did really well to subtly position Balor as the face in this match. Yeah,
I did notice that. It was
not
interesting.
Like out face, but it was just enough to tip the crowd over into onto his side of like wanting him to win.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt, obviously, that Undisputed Era are heels that you like to cheer for. However, they are heels, and they constantly do heelish stuff.
Yeah,
and they always manage to get heat, when they need to. And Balor is still kind of doing more of a, even though he's sort of had a go at the crowd once, he's still really doing a more of a sort of just cocky guy.
It's sort of more of an introspective version of himself,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's like the whole sort of my future's my past thing. He's like, well, when I softened up, that's when I started losing and I got treated badly. So I'm not going to be soft anymore, and therefore I'm going to achieve.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because the crowd definitely turned and were really gunning for Finn. I thought it was I really like his new character. I like because I especially his run on the main roster, which obviously was blighted by injuries. But I always felt like he was really struggling to get the quality of match that he's capable of, and don't know why. Then there were a few matches where you kind of hoped that they'd be more than they were, and I just think it's great seeing him working with people he's really getting some great matches out of them now.
And I like, and that I think it's the marriage of like skill level plus storytelling, and I think this match had both those elements of like there were some really cool just straight up spots, but there was also like working that injured knee was brilliant. Like there was a point early where he goes for the coup de grace and he misses because Cole's moved out of the way and he buckles, and so Cole just hits the last shot. Yeah, super early, like really early in the story of the match, and then Balor kicks out, and then there's another there was then brilliant bits of mirroring where they end up on the outside after Cole goes for a Panama Sunrise off the apron. Balor hits this huge backdrop and then just drop kicks Cole into that same portion of the crowd that he did it to Johnny Gargano that injured him and caused him to be written off. And then that was just slightly before the coup de grace moment. But like there were just all these little callbacks. There was bits of, I love the fact that Cole as the king of timing has become like a thing. Like the idea that his ability to put a super kick into somebody else's move is like a gimmick that he's running with now. So like here he does it when Balor comes in for the big running drop kick and just knocks him out of the air. Like I really, really enjoyed this. Like my only criticism of the ending maybe would be like, why didn't Balor just pin him after the coup de grace?
Yeah, that's always the problem, isn't it? In a world in which, everyone's character and every fan is a lot smarter than they were before. Faces traditionally are really dumb.
Oh yeah.
And so it's hard to it's hard to be the really smart, cocky, dumb guy.
Yeah, because he fires back with this huge clothesline, sends Cole through a loop, hits the drop kick, hits the coup de grace, picks him up, and he's like, "Well, now here's the 1916."
Which I'm interested. I feel like that is his finish now, right?
Yeah, I guess that is.
I feel like he's switched from the coup de grace as his main finish to
And so I guess that's maybe it, that he's decided that that's his finisher. That's how he wants to put Adam Cole away. But Johnny Gargano appears on the ramp and distracts for a second. I thought this was a bit awkwardly filmed because Balor's like looking for ages, and the commentators are going like, "What's happening? What's happening?" And then we get a shot of Johnny sort of in the background, but we never really got like a close up, or maybe they should have just played Johnny's music to distract him. I don't know what they should have done to make it feel a bit more TV'd. Like they should have filmed it more,
and more like it was like a deliberate interruption rather than just him sort of
sauntering
out. It's also slightly difficult in that because it was an NXT title match. You kind of think, come on, that should be more important than a feud that your character thinks is sort of done. You think you've done him.
Yeah. You
think you're done.
Gone.
You think you're done with him. So yeah, it was slightly awkward. But I mean, if I had to, my only real complaint about it was that it was just the predictability of it made it slightly less satisfying than it could have been.
It would be because it would have been more interesting had someone like Keith Lee cause the interruption, or because Keith basically had the match won last week when he hits the Spirit Bomb, and then it's Balor doing a coup de grace that kind of steals.
It would have been interesting to see Gargano almost try to distract Balor and then have Gargano cut off by someone else. Someone who was trying not to get their spot taken, If it was Ciampa or Keith Lee or Dijakovic, whatever, one of those guys just blindsided him as a kind of, you don't get to walk back in here
and be involved in this.
Like this is, that would have been a really interesting dynamic to sort of keep going. But I'm never a massive fan of distraction finishes in title matches, but it worked, and it's good to see Cole get a pin off the last shot as well.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where it's, I guess because they've got the TV show now, there are a lot more title matches happening because you want to advertise that a big title match is happening between this component and that component, and then that sells, that at least gets eyes on the product because people are going to go, well, I have to watch it this week because that's happening. But then that does mean that the number of distraction finishes or schmozzes or whatever it is has gone up drastically on NXT. I'm not massively against it because the matches are good, and as a wrestling fan, you kind of know that's par for the course. It is just a shame to watch. I feel like NXT before, there was an element of surprise because they could just kind of do what they wanted because of I think basically the fact that nobody was really watching the TV show. So they would try different things and they would do title changes every so often. But really, you just sort of knew that the story was going to have twists and turns, but the end point was kind of fixed. Here, it just feels like they're just always going to be distraction, because we have to keep accidentally booking ourselves into corners because we're trying to get people to watch the TV show.
I wasn't. I mean, we're sat here, we're picking at it a bit, but actually, worth saying that it was all really good to great.
Oh yeah,
and it's just. Yeah, I'm just not that big of a fan of doing that sort of distraction finish for a title match.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's another way of doing it. Whether it's, the classic, the match happens, as Balor's going towards the ramp, that's when Johnny comes out. Also, I don't know, like you said, all the music just hits.
Yeah.
I don't know. They feel like there were other options available.
An attack might have been better than a distraction. I think something like that's a bit more fiery and a bit more drama. But I still liked once the finish, because it was Johnny distracts, Cole low blows, hits the last shot. So that rematch is very much still on the table between Balor and Cole, because Balor can go, look, 1, distraction, 2, he cheated. I am shooing for a rematch here. So we can get this visual pin going, and Adam Cole can get out of the way, and the match can be over. And then Johnny gets in the ring. I liked the fact that when Johnny gets his weapon of choice, because we've had this mirrored spot earlier in the match where Cole is flung into the crowd by Balor's dropkick, Johnny can lean over the barricade that he went through that caused him injury and pull out a chair, and then take that into the ring to beat Balor down with. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I thought once Gargano was there and involved and doing his thing, I mean, it's interesting to see where Gargano's character's going, because we saw, obviously the whole narrative of what Ciampa was unlocking within him was such a big part of that feud. And it feels like we kind of picked up on that again. This was vicious and hard-hitting and, quite, it's sort of tapping into that side of him that we sort of saw before. I
think after 2 losses to Adam Cole, on the trot, that might be the best thing to do with Johnny now, is to let's fire him up again, because maybe Johnny Wrestling, sweet Cleveland boy Jonathan Wrestling isn't going to win championships, isn't going to really cut the mustard anymore in NXT.
Yeah, there's almost an argument to do that he never actually wins it.
Yeah.
That's that from this point on,
he had that 1 month or whatever it was, or 2 months, and that's his moment. Yeah. Because I think
he keeps getting nearly bites the cherry.
That's how you make somebody the ultimate underdog, and I think Johnny is, beyond Daniel Bryan and Bayley, not Bayley anymore really, but beyond those two, he is WWE's ultimate. Underdog.
Do we think we are just nearing the end of what should be his run on NXT? Are we starting to just... This feels a bit... It feels like, not completely, but this feels like this is all stuff from Gargano we've sort of seen before. Do you think we're just really coming to the end of his run on NXT, and actually it's time for him to just
move on?
I don't know, because also we can't look at it
It doesn't
work in the same way anymore.
It doesn't work like that anymore because it's not a feeder program anymore. It's and
I don't necessarily think that's true.
Is NXT for life as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't necessarily think that's true. I just think it's a question I think it's worth asking for any of these guys that have been there at a certain place for a long time. At some point, where do you?
Well, I guess that's the sort of like the next. Like 2020 is going to be a really interesting year for NXT as a program because you've got this established cast of characters that you've spent all of this year building up. You've got your Keith Lees, your Matt Riddles, your Dijakovic. You've got Baszler and Mia Yim and Io Shirai and whoever else. But you still, like I said, have all these people in the back who've been there for ages and haven't got any TV time, haven't had anything to do. And normally what would happen was we would get to WrestleMania and everyone would just move up and move off.
Yeah,
and then that's when you get your chance to come back through. You get to go out through the curtain on like game night and have your match, and then you start to build up a character, and then you eventually move up the card into the next, and then into the next belt, and then you go off again. But because we don't have that conveyor belt system anymore, is NXT just going to have to park some people for a bit to give other people a go? Because at the moment, it feels like what they're trying to do is give every single person a little bit of time to do something that they've already established to like be involved. So like each episode of NXT kind of feels like we've got to quickly see what Io Shirai is up to, we'll quickly see Candice LeRae, we'll quickly see this person or that person. And that's not going to work as their roster continues to balloon, as WWE's Performance Center continues to sign people. So whether or not like... some of these more established acts from the indie scene are going to like more quickly go to Raw and SmackDown. Like Deonna Purrazzo was on Raw this week, and she's not been seen on NXT, but she has been on Raw to obviously lose. But
it's tricky. I do think we're going to have to ask that question about a few of those guys over the next year.
And I think Johnny's definitely like top level. Johnny's the sort of person who, in WWE, in like WWE terms, he's like a Roman Reigns in the sense that like that Roman Reigns could go away for a bit, like 6 months, and nobody would really be like, oh no, where's Roman? And then he could walk back in and immediately sort of be in a main event picture, and nobody would bat an eyelid. John Cena is the same guy, like in that sense that like John can go away for however long to do a movie, and then literally just walk back through the door, and people will just go, oh, he's taking on The Undertaker, whatever. He's taking on the champion, whatever. Johnny's that guy for NXT, but in the same vein as like with Roman, if circumstances hadn't dictated that Roman had to go away, he wouldn't have gone away. Yeah. And I don't think they'll do this. I think the same thing is true of Johnny, is that like the decision should probably be to put Johnny off screen for a little bit to build up interest in him coming back and deploy him carefully. And I don't think NXT will do that with him.
It's just tricky, isn't it, to maintain a character in which your character has become, I'm the one who just has amazing matches at takeovers.
Yeah.
And you have this feud which reached such emotive levels. It's kind of what we were saying about the Rhea Ripley celebration. Very difficult to repeat that or maintain that level of emotion. I think with Johnny, the NXT audience has spent so much emotion with him, and the whole Ciampa Johnny feud was one of the best feuds I can remember. Really, realistically, it was amazing. How do you get that back?
Do that again with someone else?
Yeah. And normally the answer is you don't. You just do something else. Like that was such a unique story. So him having some sort of you're dragging something new out of me blood feud is something that we know he can do, but we have also sort of seen him do it. The interesting thing is that have we really seen that from Balor?
No.
And I'd say no. So that's the new dynamic, but that is a new version of an old story. And I would like to see. I don't know how to do I don't know what that new thing will be, but I would like to see something really fresh for Johnny.
After that heck of a tangent, anyway, We then got a recap package of Dunn, Dane, and Priest, and they went over the fact that Priest got injured during their takeover match. And we then saw Damian Priest take on Killian Dane in the other two.
These guys need something to do match.
Yes, exactly. We've got 3 components to this feud, and they've all just sort of separately had matches now again. So we've already had Dunn and Dane again, so now we're getting Dane and Priest, because why the hell not? The whole match was built around the idea that Priest's ribs were taped up, and Dane immediately just started wailing on them really early doors, like big elbows, big punches. He did the divide right into them. And for a lot of the match, the storytelling here was that Priest was just on the receiving end of a heck of a beatdown. And I was, this felt like it was designed to be a sort of come down off the opening match. This was meant to settle the crowd back down again and then slowly begin to build them back up, because this was sort of, they didn't flatline. They were still quite into the match, I thought, throughout most of it. It was just meant to be like, here's some really technical, fun wrestling-y stuff, and then Priest fires up and he hits all these strikes. And I thought the best spot was him building up to that suplex where he couldn't hit it because his ribs kept giving out, and he did it a couple of times, and he just hits this one suplex on Killian Dane, and everyone goes, yes, our suplex. I love it when wrestling matches make what is, to all intents and purposes, the most bog standard move turned into like, this is insane. Like, I can't believe they did a suplex.
Yeah, I know. It's great. I really enjoyed this match.
Yeah, I really liked it.
I think I don't really like. I'm not that invested in this feud between these 3, because it's not really for anything, and the attacks and the back and forth haven't really cost anyone anything.
I would argue that it's not a feud anymore. I would argue that this is just, I would say the feud culminated at TakeOver.
A loose collaboration of people angry at each other.
Yeah. It's like a collective thing. It's a
vibe.
But yeah, that's what I think it is. I just think it happens to be that these guys are all of a certain level on the same card, and now they're just sort of being put in matches because NXT is a little bit, and this is the wider argument about like Undisputed Era having all the gold. NXT is a little bit spinning its wheels with the tag championships and the North American title, because this week we've got Adam Cole doing the NXT championship, and we've had that story for a little while. So then next week we're going to get Roddy Strong's open challenge for the US title, the North American title. But what realistically this feud, Killian Dane, Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, in my head, should have been a North American title feud. But because Roddy's already a member of the Undisputed Era, and we can't just keep having Undisputed Era entrances every single week, this just has to sort of be for no reason.
So this is, as soon as I saw the open challenge, for next week, the first thing I thought of was, I bet you one of these guys answers the challenge and it gets disrupted, and then by the time we get to TakeOver, it's a 4-way.
Oh yeah,
for the North American title,
where Roddy gets murdered.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yeah,
I think it's also the right way of getting the belt undone. I think Dunn would be a great North American champion.
Yeah, I think Dunn would be a great like NXT champion.
I know, obviously,
whatever belt you want to give the man, but like,
but like for right now, I think he's perfect for that. Where he is, where he sits in the roster, the kind of match he's having, I just think he's sort of
If you're not going to build a really big feud around it, because like what was Roddy's last big North American title feud was Velveteen Dream.
Yeah,
and that was for him winning the belt. That wasn't even for him like he's not really had anything. He's not had a lot to do.
No,
since he won the belt. So it's time to sort of start.
They've been unlucky with injuries as well, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's time to start building some characters up ready to be on the takeover level for these belts.
Well, this thing, all that new crop of guys, Riddle, Lee, Dijakovic, they're clearly circling the main belt.
Yeah.
So they've sort of skipped a rung, and now there's a bit of a no man's land,
a vacuum. Yeah.
And I feel like those 3 guys are the perfect salve for that.
Yeah, so this match ends anyway with Dane goes for a big Vader bomb, hits the knees of Damian Priest, who then pops up and hits the Reckoning, and he gets the 1, 2, 3. So I think this was sort of positioning Damian Priest slightly higher up the card. Maybe because he's going to answer the Open Challenge next week. This was just a sort of remember Damian Priest, because he's going to be involved in something important down the line. We then saw Kushida and Cameron Grimes working out separately backstage, getting ready for their match over a hat. We then got the announcement that the Dusty Road Tag Team Classic is coming back next year, and the teams are going to be announced on the New Year's Day edition of NXT, because NXT next week is on Christmas Day, and then the week after... as normally happens, but like New Year's Day edition as well. That's quite cool.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I'm intrigued to see what main roster tag team just drops down for it.
Yeah,
I feel like they're going to do that.
Well, because I think what I'm hoping for is we're probably going to have Franken teams. There's normally a Franken team in the Dusty Classic. I reckon this year it might be Keith Lee, Dijakovic as a sort of the ones who make it through to the final to have the big takeover match. But I'm interested to see if there's anyone else, like any other tag teams brought down to be in it, or just any other tag teams make a debut to be in it, because at the moment the tag division in NXT is actually a little bit lacking, because the Undisputed Era won't be in the Dusty Classic, because normally the champions are the prize. So who we got? Forgotten Sons, Breezango, end of list. I did like, who else is
would
there?
Would they bring anyone in from
the?
Would they bring like Lorcan and thingy back from NXT?
Oh yeah, Lorcan and Birch. Yeah. There's that.
They could bring a few.
Maybe they'll bring over like Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews. Maybe they'll bring over the Grizzled Young Vets or someone like that.
I always forget. I always remember that he's changed his name. Ilya Dragunov.
Oh yeah,
that's not his name in NXT.
Dragunov, yeah.
Is that they've kept his
name?
Yeah. So will they bring those guys up as well?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of. I think there's a lot of like, would Imperium be there? There's a lot of things that could happen. So it could be quite an exciting time for NXT. The match between Cameron Grimes and Kushida over the hat. Was perfectly fine.
Like Samson, he's nothing without his hat.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you beat a Cameron Grimes. Except you don't, because Cameron Grimes won this with a cave in.
The stomp is wicked for a start.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome. His what does he call it? His weird backflippy splash thing.
I have no idea what it's called.
Every time he does it, I'm still completely baffled as to what that is or how it works. Every time, even this time, I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
What is happening? It's just two men exploding.
There was a great bit in this match where he him and Kushida sort of collided in the air, and he just turned that into a German suplex. And I was like, he's just doing other moves.
When he had him in the German suplex, but he was holding his waist right up here, did the big high angle. Oh my God.
These two clearly have chemistry. I just wish it was about more than a hat.
Yeah, and also, by the way,
I told you the hat was a stupid thing.
I actually think the hat is getting over.
The hat
got a pop when
shouldn't be.
When he put the hat on, it got a pop.
It's bollocks.
It's not.
It shouldn't be a gimmick.
I like the hat. I think it's a fun gimmick. No, it's not a gimmick. It's just
no. But that's the thing. It's not a gimmick. It's a hat.
I like it.
But it's being used as a gimmick. Kushida stealing the hat and coming out to the ring. It's like, this is what in the same vein that Rusev and Bobby Lashley are fighting over Lana. Lana's the hat. Like, this is the hat now.
It's a MacGuffin fight.
Yeah, it's the MacGuffin.
I like it.
No,
I defend it. I think it's fun. I think it's fun. I think I do think it's quite weird to see Kushida in NXT still. Mm-hmm. Like, he is overqualified to be in the lower mid card.
Well, like Kushida, in my head, Kushida would have been should have been the cruiserweight champion immediately. Like, they should have just given him that when he walked through the door. Especially when they rebranded it as the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. I thought everything they were doing with Kushida before Walter was amazing. And then I loved the Kushida Walter match. I thought it was really great. And I love the fact that that was the ramp up of the story as well. It was like Kushida's challenging literally anyone that he can get his hands on to a match. And then Walter walks through the door and he's like, well, I'll have Walter then. That's fine. I liked it. He obviously had to take the loss because it's Walter. However, he has been, I think, just completely aimless since then. And obviously he's had the injury as well. But I think this Cameron Grimes thing feels like a fall from grace in the sense that like before he had a really strong identity as a character, and like without one of those brilliant identities as a character that you can do really good matches without having to be about something. And here, instead of it being about like pride and I want to prove that I'm the best and test myself, it's about a hat.
Yeah, but the hat is important.
No, it's not. I'm moving us on because the hat is nonsense. We then saw Rhea Ripley working out backstage, and then we've got Io Shirai versus Santana Garrett, who is the favoured jobber of the women's division at the moment, it seems, who's jobbed out to Taynara and a couple of other people as well.
She's good.
This was fine. I'm not massively into Santana Garrett. I don't like. It's a bit too handstandy for me. It's a bit too gymnastic. It's a bit too like. I know what you mean. It's a bit too like practice gymnastics.
There was one spot quite early on where she like grabbed the hand and she went to slap her. It was all quite.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to slap you. Like it was a bit of a like it had a like.
It's making me feel weird.
But like
stay on your side of the desk.
Sorry. Like that was all a bit. Yeah, there was sometimes it was a bit slow or whatever, but I think it's fine. I mean, Io Shirai's still really over.
Again, I think this was.
I don't think this is necessarily where you should be deploying Io Shirai.
No, I think this was a bit of a filler match, but also again, I think if in the same breath of me saying that Damian Priest match was a reminder of who Damian Priest is. Yes. I think this is a reminder of who Io Shirai is, because I think Io Shirai could be a very like.
I think she might be next challenger,
immediate contender for Rhea Ripley.
I think she will be.
I just think. Like, this was just remember the name, Io Shirai.
Yeah.
It's a double knees and a moonsault, and she wins the match, as you would imagine, against someone like Santana Garrett. We then got a match that was sort of being billed as a promo for the Worlds Collide tournament that's happening on the weekend of the Rumble. Now, Worlds Collide traditionally is sort of like a multi-brand tournament. We've had iterations of it where it's NXT, NXT UK, 205 Live, but then also iterations where it's all of those and Raw and SmackDown as well. This iteration is NXT versus NXT UK. Yeah, like a really shallow pool of people.
Different worlds.
But it's also
different worlds,
two
mate.
sides of an ocean.
Yeah,
but
different
it's
worlds,
also
mate.
like it's not exactly like NXT UK hasn't been on NXT
regularly,
really recently.
Yeah,
like Walter was there recently. Like we were literally just talking about Walter for the last match or the match before. But like,
it's also slightly confusing because I kind of feel like this is how they're just bringing Travis Banks up to NXT.
Yeah,
via him appearing as NXT UK's
representative. Yeah. So this felt like a sort of roundabout way, and also I like. You know, if all the rumours are going around about 205 Live potentially being cancelled or whatever, like, doesn't look good, does it? They can't even make it into the tournament nobody cares about.
Yeah.
But, and then this match between them was, as you would expect, between two guys who've worked together loads, who know each other really well. They kick the hell out of each other. It was really good.
Travis Banks is awesome.
I spent a lot of time being confused about it's NXT UK versus NXT, and I was like, he done NXT. I know he is NXT now, but in my head I was just like, but he's also the...
But you know what?
He was on NXT UK for so long.
They never actually explicitly said he had changed.
No.
And even in this match, they were like questioning where his loyalty was or whatever. So maybe that's something they'll do.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a really fun match.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
They beat each other up.
Yeah, they worked together really well. I think Travis Banks, if he comes to NXT full time, would be an amazing addition to the roster because he's so good.
He's awesome.
And I think clearly all the years of doing progress matches together and all that stuff has worked, and these two can just put on an awesome.
Can you kick me harder? Probably.
Can you kick me harder? Yeah, it's not really about anything, but I'm going to kick you really hard match. One of the cool bits, I love the there was the sunset flip bomb, but Pete Dunne just backflips off the apron and runs in with this huge enziguri, and then they sort of tried to counter each other's finishes for a bit. Thought that was really awesome. The finish was was it a massive X-plex that he did?
Yes, it was.
He did like a like an avalanche X-plex basically, and then he kicks him really hard in the head, and then it just does the bitter end.
Yeah,
I think he should have just pinned him after kicking him really hard in the head. I'd love that to be somebody's actual finisher.
The reversal that Banks got for the bitter end halfway through the match. Kind of thought that was a really good false finish, I thought, because it really felt like he'd got his offense in, then he got cut off, bitter end. Okay, this is where he loses. Yeah. And then he just flipped into that DDT, and then got it was really well paced match. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I'd love to see the two of them work together more. Yeah. I'd love to see it like not framed as by the way, there's this tournament you don't care about. I would just like to see them sort of given more time and a much bigger platform. So the last thing before we got Rhea Ripley versus Shayna Baszler, or a couple of little items to pick up afterwards as well. But we got Dakota Kai backstage with Kathy Kelly. Dakota Kai said that, I'm quite annoyed because Mia Yim put me through a couple of tables and I've got some staples in my back and that is annoying. But the thing to remember is I did beat Mia Yim, which I think is a very important point to remember. And she says, I want the NXT women's title.
Yeah.
After that. So there's a few, I think, like if Io Shirai is being positioned earlier in this show as like a potential contender, Dakota Kai is positioning herself as a potential contender. I think that story is more interesting because Dakota tried to cost Rhea the War Games match. It would be more interesting were it's sort of more established that Tegan Nox and Rhea Ripley were friends, or if it had cost Rhea the match in the first place. There's a lot to it there that could be really interesting to do it.
And even also, Dakota Kai and Io Shirai could have something where Dakota can be kind of going, I put this on a platter.
Yeah.
And they still, that's your fault. Just somehow blame Io. Like I think there's, like you said, there's a lot they could do now.
We then got the announcement that Roddy Strong was going to have a North American Championship Open Challenge on Christmas Day, and we're also going to get Lio Rush and Keith Lee versus Damian Priest and Tony Nese.
I like Tony Nese being in this. Yep. He's, again, one of those guys who you can throw into these things because you know what he's going to bring. And I would like to kind of see him experiment a bit more with his character as well. I'm not sure I'm just the athletic guy is cutting the mustard.
Yeah.
And, but he is an amazing wrestler.
Oh, yeah.
A great talent. I'm just really, when I see his name and stuff, I'm just going like, yeah, that's really cool.
I think that's going to be a really good match.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see like Leo and Keith Lee as a team as well. I think that's going to be awesome. And I also, it makes me excited about the idea that Lio Rush might move out of the cruiserweight division and into sort of some more, like, he's only been mixing it up with people of a very certain size for a very long time in WWE. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see him go up against bigger guys and the kind of stories they're going to do with matches.
I think Keith Lee is going to pick Lio Rush up and throw him really hard into the other men. And I think it's going to be insane.
Excellent stuff. Well, that was NXT. I gave it a very high 4 out of 5. I think the things that were missing, there was like maybe just some like big killer angle or super hot promo to really tip it over into that 5-star territory. But for me, I thought this was an awesome episode of NXT. Just wall to wall, very good wrestling.
I felt like my overarching feeling that the 2 championship matches should not have been done on TV kind of tarnished it a bit for me. However, I still thought it was a fantastic show. I would say, for me, it's probably just like a really, really high 3.
Cool. Well, let us know what you thought in the comments down below because we'll definitely read them. And let's read the last couple of super chats before we get out of here, shall we? Thank you very much to everyone who watched, by the way, as well. Jobber JJ says, in my opinion, NXT having championship matches every week, hot shot booking. Title change was only done to beat AEW. It's the one thing that pisses me off. Which is kind of what you were saying as well. The one thing. He's a very calm man, JJ, other than this one thing.
This is his kryptonite. And like, TV title matches.
Like therapists are saying, don't watch NXT then if it annoys you so much.
Yeah, I don't think beating AEW by 20,000 viewers is worth doing two of your best title matches that you could do at a takeover.
I think they were well handled here. I think they leave potential to do them again. Like it's
nothing we're saying could not have also been the case at Takeover.
No, it's just it's kind of you have to get the viewing figures because that's how you keep your TV show on TV. And I think NXT has been. I didn't think it was possible, but I do think it has been a better product since it went to 2 hours on TV.
Yeah,
I actually think
consistently so
because they are trying to up their game. And part of upping a game sometimes is having championship matches. Jamie Lavin says Pete or Travis need to knock on a certain door. I would love to.
That would be cool.
See either of them go up against Aleister Black. I would like to see Aleister Black more.
I would like to. At this point, Aleister Black against anyone would be nice.
Aleister Black should answer his goddamn door more often, is what I think. I like the Buddy Murphy Aleister Black match from whatever the pay-per-view was that was the other week was amazing. What was
TLC?
TLC, that was it. My brain is it's Christmas. I'm fried. Like TLC was literally on Sunday.
Yeah, it was last weekend.
Yeah, I did the review on Monday.
Yeah.
That's where we're at, people. I'm dead. And Sidart Online says DIY reunion in the Dusty Classic.
I don't want to see it.
Do you not?
No, because we saw it on Raw pointlessly, so I'm sort of over it now.
Oh, that's mean.
They ruined it.
They didn't ruin it. On WWE Miscellaneous, Dina Cisse says, what do you guys think?
What's that, the bump?
Dina Cisse says, what do you guys think of Lee and Dijakovic possibly being in the Elimination Chamber? I'd like to see it. I'd like if NXT did its own Elimination Chamber match, or whether it was... I don't know. I don't really want the NXT... I don't want the Elimination Chamber match to be about brand supremacy. I want it to be like... I liked last year's one with Kofi in it, and it being mostly about the story of Kofi and Bryan, and that I like it when it's sort of centered or it's got like an overarching plot. I don't like it just being like it's for brand supremacy, so there's 2 of you and 2 of you and 2 of you, or however you structure those matches. Although the Survivor Series matches were really fun, but because I think they've got that kind of Rumble vibe of just like here's a load of people doing a load of spots. Let's see what silly stuff happens. It's kind of house showy in that way. Yeah,
there's a lot of guys who I think on the NXT roster who would be amazing in that sort of match. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
And finally, on WrestleTalk Miscellaneous, Sean just says, keep up the good work, lads, Laurie and Simon.
You know what? No, I won't. I'm going to start doing bad work.
There we go. So thank you very much for watching. That is all we have time for. Thank you also to our lovely mods for sorting out all of the super chats for us. If you are watching on Catch Up, please click the videos that have appeared on the desk now. Claptrap. If you're watching on Claptrap, if you're playing Borderlands, please click the videos that have appeared on him and on the desk to watch more awesome WrestleTalk things. I have been El Fagador Laurie Blake. This has been housemate Simon Longdon. And that was NXT. I think it's this button. Whoa!
Whoa! The little girl with the clown.
We should get that. I'm hoping Pete's turned off the other thing. Let's just get out of here before that.